Hey, no problem.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, yes, let's jump right into it and talk about the new book. So, The World Peace Way. Again, it's a companion book to Food for Freedom. So, two books that are, incredibly written, like all of your books, and very in depth on the deeper meanings of our food and culture, and the indoctrination and conditioning that we've all gone through, and really the plight of animals and how that reflects on our own suffering. So, do you want to just give us a brief description? And for anybody, I'm sure everybody here knows Dr. Tuttle, but if you want to give just a brief description of how you got into this lifestyle and what got you interested in sharing information like you share in your book.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Basically, I'm like everybody else in our society, more or less. I was raised eating the usual meals that everybody eats, lots of meat, dairy, and eggs in Concord, Massachusetts, back in the 1950s and 60s. And when I went to college, I started to question things, and then that led to embarking on a spiritual pilgrimage right after college. And I was thinking of walking across the country with my brother and just meditating. And that led me to the farm in Tennessee back in 1975, which was at that point the largest hippie commune in the world back then. And they were all eating, they were vegetarians. And we would today call them vegans in the sense that they didn't need any meat, dairy, eggs, or even honey. And they were really doing it for ethical reasons primarily, also for health reasons, environmental reasons, also for humanitarian reasons. They informed me that most of the food we're growing we're feeding to animals while people are starving. So that was it. I never ate meat in my life after that. And my wonderful wife, Madeleine, when I met her, I found out the same month and year, she also decided to, in Switzerland, she lived in Switzerland, to never eat meat again. So we're both longtime vegetarians. Actually, I became a vegan a few years later in 1980. And so I've been a vegan now for, 45 years. And it's really been a wonderful adventure, a great journey. And the reason I'm writing these books and have written them is really to share these ideas, which I think are the most valuable, liberating, and inspiring ideas for our society right now. The underlying teaching, which is really at the core of all the world religions, is that it is possible for us as human beings to raise our vibratory frequency to a higher level so that we can awaken out of delusion and misunderstanding which cause suffering to ourselves and others. And the core of that, I think, for our time is the mentality that's really required of us if we're going to be eating animal-based foods. If I'm going to eat animal-based foods, I have to learn to disconnect what I'm eating from the reality that it took to get that on my plate. And we're very adept at that. We learn in our society how to disconnect very elegantly.
Yeah.
We can cover things up. We can make things disappear. We can basically sort of just plaster over the horror and misery and toxicity of the foods we're eating and act like this is just natural, normal, delicious, great stuff. But it's really the flesh of tortured animals and their secretions, and babies are being killed, and female animals are being horribly sexually abused and killed. And we're not only causing that by voting for it, but we're actually eating it. So we have this beautiful temple, this physical body that's really here for a few decades if we really treat it well. And yet it's not our fault. We're just basically tribal people. We're tribal. We eat like the tribe does. And so as little children, we just go along with the whole narrative and the practice because we have to. We don't have a choice. If I go to France, I can't say, well, I'm going to speak English to them. They won't understand me. I have to speak French. As a little kid growing up here, I have to eat what everybody's eating. I don't have a choice. And so at a certain point, when we get older, we do have a choice, right? So I'm really glad when I got into my 20s, I started questioning the official narrative, but it's not easy, So the two books that I wrote that you referred to, The World Peace Diet and Food for Freedom, these are deep philosophical books that really bring in the whole range of our society. They talk a lot about philosophy, also sociology, anthropology, psychology, spirituality, economics, politics, nutrition. Pretty much everything is reflected in and basically affected by food in our society, our food choices that we make. It really, what I've discovered in my research is that food is our most intimate connection with our society and with nature. And so it really drives the way we look at the world. And so if we're eating animal-based foods as the core of our society, which it is, and it's pretty much spread to the entire planet now through colonialism and the spread of the empire, of the European empire, essentially around the world. So everybody's eating lots of meat, dairy, and eggs, and it's tremendously profitable for the pharmaceutical industry, for the medical industry, for the chemical industries, for the war and so-called defense industries. And it all works together to concentrate a huge amount of wealth in just a very few hands. And that wealth is translated directly into power. And power is translated directly into narrative control. So if you have power over media, government, education, universities, and the social, basically these social institutions, then you create the narratives that people are telling themselves and how much they like bacon and how glad they are their kid can go to college and learn all about, it's all a bunch of lies, actually, I realize now. I mean, in the sense that it's based on a falsehood. We don't need to get our nutrients from animal-based foods. We can get all the nutrients from plants, and any plant, any nutrient that's in any animal-based food, like meat, dairy, or eggs, came originally from plants. So this is an enormously liberating understanding. And yet, since our tribalism is so powerful, we really hesitate to do anything other than what everyone else is doing, and especially when it comes to food, which is our number one most intimate connection and the thing that we would least like to be different about. And yet, it's causing a massive devastation to our physical health. And now, as I talk about in the newer books, Food for Freedom and The World Peace Way, to our freedom and happiness. So that's the basic idea. These two books, The World Peace Diet, which came out almost 20 years ago and became a #1 Amazon bestseller in 2010 and has been translated now into, I think we're up to 19 languages worldwide. That really, I think, became such a popular best-selling book because it really reveals how the underlying sort of hidden forces are at play. And once we understand that, we can free ourselves. And so people really wanted to have this in Italian, in Norwegian, Slovenian, and Chinese, and Russian, and all these languages. So great, it really took off and spread and created kind of its own movement of liberation based on the deep understanding of the oneness of spirituality and health. And so that created the foundation. And basically, through the COVID experience that we had in the last 5 years or so, I realized that we need to look deeper into this. So that was the reason that Food for Freedom was written over the last few years, and it just came out in April. And then as part of that, I really felt the need to write a book that's not a philosophy book. It's more of a practical how-to book. And that is The World Peace Way, which just came out in November. So that's a really new book. And the main thing in the World Peace Way is the subtitle of it is 6 Keys to Health and Harmony for All. And the basic idea is that there are these 6 aspects in our life that affect our health. And for sure, our health is strongly impacted by food. But we shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that's the only thing. It's really very important. And in the book, I talk more about these 6, and especially about food, and to spread our idea of food a little bit bigger, and think of it as not only what we're eating, but also what we're drinking, and what we're breathing, and what we're reading, and what we're wearing on our skin, and everything, our personal care products, and all the things in our world that we're consuming, because that's really, it goes back to the old Greek word diet. It comes from the word dieta, which means a way of living. So how do we live our lives? And I don't want to go on here too long, but I'll just kind of wrap this up by saying that the main idea really is that each one of us can be proactive in creating a healthy, joyful, free, and rewarding life. In order to be a proactive, we absolutely are called to question the official narratives, because if we go along with the way we're taught and told, we're going in a way that's not healthy and not free. And so we really, I'm so grateful for you, Matt, that you hold this fortress of light to actually keep emphasizing the importance of connecting with our intuition, with our inner wisdom, connecting with the power of food on every level. So that's kind of how I got here. I couldn't not talk about this once I realized this way back in my 20s. And so I've been an activist for what I guess you could call veganism, or ahimsa, nonviolence, or the liberation of animals and humans. It's all the same thing, for 45 years. And I just have to say, it's a joyful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I really hope that people who are activists for health and for freedom and liberation understand this, because I think a lot of people, who go into this work get really depressed. You read about the violence to animals and the hunger and starvation, and you realize it's all unnecessary. And then you try to tell people, they don't want to hear it, and people get very depressed. So it's very important to really be grateful for this opportunity. Be grateful that we discovered this wonderful good news, and that we have an opportunity to share it in some way. And people do respond. We plant the seeds, but the real work is the inner work that we do on ourselves, so that we're living this instead of trying to confront other people and change them, to actually be loving, be a force of love. So that's one of the things that came to me pretty early on, because I realized that trying to push people into this usually backfires. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I will say, I think, you mentioned that, the World Peace Diet kind of became a movement of its own. And I'll just say, I think, from my perspective anyways, you have such an elegant and clear and concise way of communicating, which I know is one of the key pillars in the World Peace Way. But it really, and this is what it did for me anyways, it really connects you with that intuitive voice within you, that it wakens you up and makes you so much more aware of, kind of what has been happening with propaganda, with indoctrination and all these things as we've been growing up. And so it really just sets off so many light bulbs in the reader's mind, and allows them to kind of start exploring those things. And so, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, the books that you're writing, the lectures you give, all of that, because it's had a big impact on myself, and I know many others as well. So thank you.
Thanks. The World Peace Diet was met with just a big embrace, for the most part, by the vegan community and people who were moving in that direction. It was met by a lot of, I guess you'd say, resistance by people who were not yet vegan. But even people who are not yet vegan, I found, responded very positively, because the underlying idea is not to blame anyone. It's not to say that these people are bad, they're eating meat, they're the scum of the earth because they're eating meat or something. It's to understand that we all went through it, right?
Yeah.
And we're at various stages of understanding. The thing that's kind of interesting, though, is that the newer book, especially the Food for Freedom, has not been really embraced by the vegan movement, because I'm really questioning things that I think the vegan movement really should be questioning. All of us, if we're interested in creating a world of freedom and health, should be questioning big pharma and big medica and big chemical companies and the big bankers in the background and all that, the media and the whole educational system, really.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed that people aren't, but I realize that even though I wrote, in writing the World Peace Diet, I gave the foundation for people to do that. I mean, people who really read the World Peace Diet should have been doing that, but I understand one book might not transform somebody completely. So in Food for Freedom, I'm just much more explicit about how everything, every institution in our society has been captured by the dark forces, really, I have to say,
Yeah.
of animal agriculture. Animal agriculture is a very dark force. I mean, when you start imprisoning and sexually abusing millions of animals every day and eating that's borders on a mass satanic ritual that's going on continually, which we are completely oblivious to that fact, and we just see it all around us. But it has a huge impact on our worldview and on the way we do politics and on the way we raise children, on everything. So once we see it, again, it's just to understand that this is something that's come through several hundred generations since way back in Iraq, back 10,000 years ago. And the great good news is that we've evolved to the point now where we can begin to actually thrive and understand that the basis for thriving, really, for all of us, is, when we look around, it's in plants, the trees that give us fruits and nuts and seeds, and the plants that give us vegetables and grains and so forth. And there's so much. There's thousands of different varieties of vegetables or plant-based foods, plant-sourced foods, I like to say.
Yeah.
And they're much less resource-intensive. Environmentally, it would just relieve the devastating impact that human beings are having on planet Earth, and allow species to return to flourishing much more, and put really just put the oceans at ease. They're being completely strip mined of fish. All of these things, these devastating impacts: soil erosion, water pollution, water depletion, air pollution, just the huge use of fossil fuels for chemicals and for fertilizers. All these things could really be radically reduced. We could reduce the amount of land under agriculture by 3/4. I mean, according to the most conservative estimates, that's huge. That means massive amount of forest and prairie. You go back to habitat for wildlife and for human beings to just enjoy, instead of enslaving the land to genetically engineered monocropped fields of corn and soy and alfalfa to feed all these animals. So it's an amazingly liberating vision. But then, like I talked about in the World Peace Way, we can actually understand this, the ecology of our own body, and how much it's the same way. It's relieved. The microbiome of the soil and the microbiome in our body are connected. And so what I'm emphasizing in the World Peace Way, these 6 keys are, diet is the first one, which we can talk a little bit about, but I know you talk about that a lot. But anyway, diet. And then the second one is the spiritual practices and meditation, really important for health. And then the third is relationships. That's really important. A lot of people eat a really healthy diet, and yet they're still angry at their mother or their ex-spouse or whatever. And so our body is a pharmacy. It creates all kinds of chemicals and drugs. And if we're chronically, upset or nervous or anxious or all these different things, that's not good. So we really need to. So I really talk a lot about relationships, and then also the next one is movement and exercise, and that's really a huge one. Not only exercise and movement, but also just how we in our society hold our bodies. Just the kind of furniture we have, and all these things. And we can be proactive in questioning all these things. And then the last two are our connection with nature, which is our great ally in being healthy, and our connection with our creativity, which is another great ally in being healthy. And I think if we're out of touch with nature, it's very hard to be really vibrantly healthy. If we're just living in a human box with human controlled temperatures and colors and shapes and everything, our body's disconnected from the beautiful natural world. And so that's a very helpful thing. I talk about forest bathing. Forest bathing in Japan is but it's something we can just they found just going into a forest, and you don't have to do anything, just be in nature, and it naturally regulates and helps us on every level with the actual blood flow and all these different hormonal things get regulated. And then creativity. If we're not actually living a purpose in this lifetime, we're not going to, it's very hard to be healthy. And the irony is, and we've all seen it, the people who really live, have a purpose, and they're really going for it, and from a kind of a spiritual level, they can eat all kinds of junk and they still stay healthy and live a long life because they have that driving purpose. So it's important for us to, I think, try to, do our best to be savvy and aware about all six and work together and emphasize those. And so this book does not have a whole lot of philosophy in it. It's mainly a how-to practical book. And I haven't written one of those really before, so this is the first one. But I think it pretty much covers the basis for everything I think that's important to understand. And sort of kind of like a little handbook. It's a smaller size, it's more compact. And the idea is you can just go through this and maybe try to put these practices into action in your daily life that I suggest. There's suggestions in there all the way through. Should I talk a little bit about some of those in the nutrition part first? Because however you like to proceed, but I could go into it a little bit, or if you have another direction you want to go, we can.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to have you go into that. I did just have a quick question, or just I noticed I haven't gotten through the book completely, but I did kind of skim through it, and even just the first the first page, I noticed something. You start off with two quotes. One from Charles Fillmore, words are also seeds, and when dropped into the invisible spiritual substance, they grow and bring forth after their kind. And then the other one by Dr. John Sarno, you said, or you shared, we must recognize that our emotions and thoughts can manifest physically in our bodies. So I thought that was such a great way to start off, this type of a book about transforming your life on all aspects, and how, whether it's the spoken word or if it's even internal thoughts and feelings that we hold, that can really have a foundational impact on the direction that our life goes. So I just wanted to point out that I just, even the first page, I was like, oh, that's such a great way to start the book, and, kind of go from there. So I don't know if you want to share anything about that, and then go into the rest. That would be great.
Right. Thank you so much, Matt. I think that's those two seeds, basically the one that Charles Fillmore said about our words are seeds, and they will sprout. So if we're planting broccoli, we're going to get broccoli. We're not going to get carrots or onions or something else. And we're always thinking, actually. We're generating thoughts, and our thoughts have feelings that go with them. And out of that, we really create this physical body and the body of our affairs, right? Our world around us, our relationships, our career, all the different things we're doing. It really comes from from inside out. So the whole idea is, instead of trying to change things out there, trying to change my body, trying to change other people and change the world, we focus internally and realize the generative power of our emotions and thoughts. And Dr. John Sarno, who's trained as a regular MD, he's really made kind of a one-man revolution somewhat within the medical community, because he really discovered that so many of the chronic pains and problems that people have, really physical problems, don't come from anything other than their emotional conflicts that they haven't faced. And so the body will manifest it, really, so that we will deal with it. And if we refuse to deal with it, we can take a drug. We can take drugs. We can even have procedures, but it'll manifest as something else. It just moves into something else. So that actually connects with something that really is a thread throughout the entire book, which is the main point in many ways, in both this book and all three books, is that we are not fundamentally physical beings. I think that's a really important point. If we think we're just merely matter, this thing that was born and will die, and that's all we are, then we're in a prison of delusion. It's not true. What we are is consciousness, awareness that manifests an experience in an apparently physical universe. And consciousness is primary. So again, we live in a culture founded upon animal agriculture, which is materialism. And basically, we're taught from the time we're little kids to see ourselves as matter, to see animals as mere matter. We buy and sell them by the pound. And that really militates against our happiness, our health, our vibrancy, our awareness, our spirituality. So being proactive to question materialism, I think, is the foundation. And that leads us to the idea of vibration. Everything is vibrational. And we know that. Music, art, architecture, all the arts can either elevate us or they can suppress us. Our emotions are vibratory. And as a musician, I'm dealing all the time with vibration, and the ways that notes harmonize together, and the way a melody moves, and the way rhythms evoke something. And there's rhythms everywhere. There's rhythms in the way the trees grow, in the seasons, micro rhythms of at the atomic level, all the way to the great rhythms of the birthing of stars and so forth. I mean, we live in a rhythmic, harmonic, melodic universe, and our bodies are the same way. So we have to understand that our thoughts have a vibratory quality. Our brain waves, of course, are vibratory. When we slow down our brain waves, when we get into deeper states of consciousness, then our consciousness rises to higher levels. Instead of being trapped and busy, it becomes more harmonious and relaxed and focused and one-pointed. And all these things just bring harmony into the cells of our body. Things work well, things heal naturally. Our body is a magnificent self-healing intelligence. Really, that's the physical body. Mm-hmm. And the body of the earth is the same way. So the whole idea, again, underlying everything is to understand, though, that we are born and raised in a culture where there are very powerful forces at work that would like us to lower our vibration, to be afraid. That's one of the lowest vibrations, to be afraid and irritated, because then we'll buy more, and then we'll be sick, and then we'll need drugs, and then we'll be profitable to these other forces. Yeah. If we're healthy and strong and vibrant and not easily controlled and proactive in our own life, we are very threatening to those forces. And we need really to, I think, as the body of humanity, to rise up so that we're no longer under the control of a really small number of people who've taken control of the reins of media and education and government. And so the way to do that is to be proactively healthy and raise our vibration through our own efforts and keep it up there. So don't look at violent movies, for example, or listen to music that is so negative, and to take time every day. Like in chapter 2, I talk about how wonderful it is that I feel like I have this opportunity every morning for about 2.5 hours. I don't do anything till I meditate for an hour and do some yoga and Tai Chi and some exercise and take a swim in the lake below our house, and all these different things. But all of that is to just set the stage or create the platform for the rest of the day. And then throughout the day to take time to meditate at noon. We do that, and before we go to bed and so forth, to create a rhythm of returning to silence, because silence is really the place of power. When we connect with silence, we connect with the infinite potential, right? So like in music, if I'm playing the piano, I'm in a track. I have to, if I play a certain rhythm and chord, like something is expected next, because we have this whole memory of what's been going on. But when I come to silence, anything can happen out of silence, right? You have infinite possibilities out of silence. So that's why it's so important for us to proactively create time for silence. We live in a society that tries to force us not to do that. We're so busy trying to make enough money to live, we don't have time to be quiet. So we have to get up a little earlier and do something so that we take the time to be in silence. Otherwise, we get enslaved by the agenda of the plutocrats who are running things, who want us always busy and distracted and being entertained by a program that is really designed to make us afraid of germs and afraid of animals and afraid of each other and afraid of nature and afraid of the weather and all these things. So I think creating our own diet is very important. So like in the first chapter, coming out of that is the idea that we just eat plant source, as we don't have to talk about that, but that's in terms of vibration. As soon as I'm eating animal-based foods, I'm definitely eating some exploitation and killing and fear and terror and so forth and panic. I mean, these animals are raised, they're killed, no matter how you do it. Even if you think it's coming from some small, friendly backyard operation. I mean, I go into that in the Food for Freedom, but there's still huge amounts of violence going on behind the scenes all the time. It's unavoidable. So we don't have to contribute to that. That's the great good news. And so and then if we can do our best to source our foods from like organically and from maybe veganically, right, without using bone meal or blood meal or manure. And so more and more people are learning about that. Like, my wife Madeleine and I we don't have a half an acre in California, but we have about half of that, about a quarter of an acre, little garden, food forest with 75 fruit trees, and it's all veganic, right? So we just build the soil through compost and teas and minerals and so forth that we add and just build up the soil gradually over the years. And it's a tremendous experience because it's a feeling of love coming back, love feeding love. Like the more we love these plants, the more they love us back. The bigger they grow, the more we get. Sometimes 700 or 800 fruits from one tree. It's amazing. One little nectarine tree will just give us hundreds of fruits, or persimmons, or peaches, all these different trees. So and then vegetables and so forth. So that idea that we can plant seeds and they germinate and they grow and it's this beauty. It's beautiful, right? I mean, anyone going to a well-tended garden, it's very uplifting. Go to any kind of a slaughterhouse or stockyard or factory farm. I mean, it's just the worst possible nightmare. I've been to these places. So we're talking about vibration. So organic, veganic, whole, try to grow it ourselves is the best, because when we grow food ourselves, then the plants get to know us and become, in a sense, just fed by ourself. In a sense, like all of our food that we eat goes through us and goes back into the garden again. Like we nourish the soil with all of that. So the whole idea is that when we do that, we are giving information to the plants, and the plants understand that, and so they're giving us back what we need. So this is something that's been lost. I think people in the past perhaps understood this, that when we grow our own food, with time it becomes not just food, but it really becomes medicinal in that sense. And we get healthier and healthier and more vibrant and more connected to the earth. And so if we can't do that, maybe we can at least get to know the farmers at the farmers market, for example, and do the best we can to source our food locally and as clean as possible. And then, I don't have time to go into the whole thing, but water is another whole thing. So really try to have water that's not only pure, so it's important to probably have a purifier of some kind, but also we like to have a structurizer on it. So because water comes through these tubes where it's just, the molecules of water just get kind of flattened down. So it swirls the water. So we found that our garden needs less water when we put it through structuring devices. Wow. We need to drink less water. It becomes more bioavailable. So I think, food and water and then air, it's really important to have, especially nowadays, clean air. So I notice in the United States, people don't open the windows that much. They just leave the windows closed all the time. And there's a real problem with indoor air pollution. Yeah. So many things are outgassing, formaldehyde, all kinds of toxic chemicals, flame retardants, all these things. And people are living this. Like Madeleine and I, when we travel, like right now for 5 months, we're on the road, and almost every night we're staying somewhere where we could stay inside someone's house. They say, "Oh, we have a guest room, you can stay there. Or we have a room, you can stay there." We never do. Yeah, we don't want to be in there because it's amazing. People have these air fresheners, and quite honestly, to be honest with you, I can no longer tolerate forced air heating or air conditioning. Winter comes and everybody says, "Oh, it's flu season." I know why it's flu season. You're living inside in all this toxic air with this forced air heat, I mean, it would make me, I'd be coughing and wheezing and sick too, but I'm never sick because I don't live inside. I live outside.
Right.
I live in, we have a heater. We've never used it. We have an air conditioner. We've never used it. We just run a fan, in the summer, and we run little small space heaters sometimes in the winter, but I don't run this big, this big forced air heater. I can't take it. I mean, I don't know how people take it. I just, it's really, I think it's just the way that our technology has evolved. It used to be better. When I was a kid, we had a heating system in our house that it just heated up water, and then the water went through pipes and it just warmed up the air by hot water. That was a lot better. But anyway, so these are some of the things to be aware of, just the air, quality of air. And then when we go to these people's houses, and a lot of times they're very conscious vegan people, and I'll open the medicine cabinet and see what's in there. I mean, all these long lists of toxic chemical ingredients on makeup and shampoo and cleaning everything, sunscreens, all these things. Anything we put on our skin, we might as well be eating it. It goes right into our bloodstream. So again, we need to be proactive and understand that we are not protected at all by any governmental agency. They've all been completely captured by the industries, and they're in bed, the chemical industries, the fast food industries, the petroleum industries, the fragrance industries. They're all run by the same banks. They want to maximize sickness. That's the design. They want to maximize toxic chemicals in all products.
Yeah.
As long as they can get us to be stupid enough to buy them, then they'll do it. So we have to really don't expect to be protected by agencies. Maybe when Kennedy gets in, he'll help. But
Hopefully,
we gotta like be proactive ourselves, and because the forces that are apparently in power here don't make any money from healthy people.
Right.
So again, all these things, and then beyond that, all these different types of nutrients that come into our body are what we're reading and what we're taking in with the media, and what our relationships really are, what our thoughts are. Like you said, this is really what we're consuming in many ways. And so again, it's really important to be proactive. And I think for myself, it's fine for me to read about things that are disturbing. I like to know what's going on in the world, but I think it's really important to balance that out with reality, like get into nature and see the beauty around us of trees and plants and birds, and celebrating their lives, and also to take time to read spiritually uplifting and truthful texts as well, so that we're fed and nurtured by positive truth. And so that's chapter 1. And, I'll just maybe briefly go through the other ones, just give a brief overview. But chapter 2 talks about, I've already talked about it, so it's good, but the meditation and spiritual practice. This is so important because really the body and mind are one. Anything that affects our body will affect our mind. Anything that affects our mind will affect our body. We know that. So to really treat our mind well, to take time for silence, to take time to connect with the sense of gratitude. We can actually cultivate a sense of gratitude when we get up in the morning, and let it go through the day, and take time to feel that. And then the other thing I think that kind of goes into number 3, relationships, is to be proactive in radiating love to others. That's a meditation. We can sit in meditation and just radiate the light of love and peace into the world. And we can do that when we're with other people. Instead of trying to get something from them, try to give something. And the more we do that, the universe is amazing. The way the universe is set up is whatever we give out, well, that's how it'll come back. We don't have to try to get it. If whatever we want to have, we give that. That's the secret. People think that we're taught in our society, if you want to get something, you've got to go out and get it. And if you have to hit somebody to do it, okay, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hit them basically, but you kind of manipulate the situation so that you get it. We use each other as instruments to get what we want. The spiritual teachers say that's backwards. If we would like to have an abundant life, then be generous, be giving. The universe will always double whatever we put out, at least, or maybe 10 times as much. So plant seeds and they'll come back. We plant one seed and we get a tree with thousands of seeds. And this is what I've discovered. It may not come back exactly the same, but it'll come back in another way that's probably even better. So relationships is a really important thing to focus on in communication. So that's chapter 3. And just the basic idea of doing the best we can to be loving in our speech. That basically, that idea. Because all of us, anyone you ever see is suffering. We are all suffering. It's an old saying in Zen, to have a body is to suffer. It's really, having a body, there's pain receptors all over the place, and there's going to be suffering. So all of us are in a situation of difficulties. It's not necessarily bad. The earth is like a gymnasium. When you go to a gymnasium, you expect to have some heavy weights you got to lift so you get stronger. So the pain is a teaching to help us learn. So it's not bad, and it's temporary. Everything is temporary. But the idea is that people everyone's having trouble, so don't add to it. Do the best we can to be a light. Listen, learn to listen. And that's one of the best things that I'm still trying to get better at, is to listen rather than when someone's talking to me, rather than just saying, well, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. Really listen to them, and then let our intuition respond without trying to, sort of assert ourselves all the time and be somebody special. So that's really the foundation, some humility and some listening and some sense of kindness and caring for others. This is what really, I think, gives us joy in the big picture. What really brings us the sense of joy and peace is that we're being kind and loving to others, including animals, of course. That's why eating a plant-based diet is the foundation of everything. And then the other 3, the movement and exercise, just briefly, I think I talked quite a bit about how, when I was in my early 20s, I just left home with my brother. I ended up in these Zen meditation centers. So I was sort of suddenly immersed in Chinese culture, Tibetan culture, Vietnamese, Japanese, and Korean culture, because I was really interested in these meditation traditions that came from those countries. And so a lot of times in those traditional societies, at least in the good old days, they didn't have chairs. Everybody sat on the floor. So I still, to this day, I don't have any chairs. And we don't have any chairs in our house, or even couches or anything. We have zafus and zabutans, which are basically cushions and mats and things. And we sit. I have my desk on a mat, and like right now, I'm just sitting cross-legged. I just found when I started meditating that I just wanted to be able to sit on the earth and be comfortable and not always be propped up. And I realized through a little research that sitting in chairs, it kind of puts our whole body into a kind of a weird position and takes our posture out and all these things. So we don't move enough. So moving, it's nice to see people now have desks where they're standing maybe, or they're sitting on a ball, or they're maybe kneeling, or they're maybe getting up and down. But whatever we can do to just understand that we live in a culture that's disconnected from the earth, that's in many ways makes money when people have back problems and all these other things. And be aware of our shoes, for example. People wear shoes that are going barefoot is fantastic, or shoes that are more like barefoot. Mm-hmm. That's what we're really designed for. And connecting with the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain and the stars, all that is really important. So exercising outdoors in fresh air is really a wonderful thing. And just being aware, like I talk about, even about how we have these toilets that are like, little thrones where our legs dangle down and we sit there like this, When I was in Korea, it was so great in Korea. Nobody, there was not, back in the 80s, there were none of those. And so I had to all the toilets were in the floor. They had these ceramic things in the floor. So you had to squat over it and then do your business, and then you flushed it. Oh. And when I went back 30 years later, there are none of those left. There are all these Western toilets. And I thought it's too bad, because when you're in a squatting position is a wonderful position. You're on your feet, but you're low to the earth. And it's a natural way to give birth. It's a natural way to defecate. It's just, it works a lot better. And but the Western way spreads, and they're now in Korea. They're all eating meat and dairy, and they're all sitting on these thrones. And now they have diabetes and colon cancer and all this other stuff. Big money for the pharmaceutical complex. So again, just look at how we live naturally, and I think we'll be more in harmony. And then I talk a little bit about Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, these types of traditions that are really based, I think, in many ways on an ancient wisdom of the harmony that we have in nature when we move. And then, of course, aerobic exercise is fantastic, all these other things. So our bodies love to move. So the more we understand this and honor this, even if it's hard to do sometimes, it's great. And cold water, things that make our body move or adapt, even cold and warm temperatures. One of the things I think that's not very good is having a thermostat that you just set, and then it's just, you don't experience anything. Yeah. I mean, getting hot, sweating, free. There's an old saying in Zen, in the winter I shiver, in the summer I sweat. That's it. It's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's much more like, then our body is much stronger and we're happier. It's like, we're not like, oh God, I'm afraid of the heat, I'm afraid of the cold, I've got to always, we live in a society that in a way inflicts these kind of attitudes on us because we think we venerate technology because it makes us comfortable. We want to be comfortable above everything.
Yeah.
And the old ancient wisdom is, if we want to be comfortable, we're going to be very uncomfortable. If we don't mind being uncomfortable, then we'll be very comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Whatever we think is easy, our life is going to be hard. If we're willing to do what's really hard, our life will be easy.
Right.
That's it. If we're willing to do what's hard and take time to meditate and just open up to heat and cold and to situations, then we're at peace, much more flexible. Flexibility is really important too. Exercises that bring flexibility. And then the last two things I emphasize are nature and creativity. Again, I've already talked about those somewhat, but the natural world is our greatest ally. I remember when I was young, I did a vision quest. I've done it a few times, but traditional cultures very often would go into nature alone and just fast and be just out there. And the idea is when you do that with a sacred intention, you'll get clarity that can be very helpful and profound for the rest of your life. And I think this, again, is something that we've lost touch with. Young people don't really go through initiation ceremonies alone in nature to connect with the core of being that is our true nature. If we can do that in some way, then I think it's a fantastic thing. It's really, I'm so grateful that I did that a few times. And nature itself, just getting into nature, even if it's just for an hour or for a weekend or whatever, it helps bring back our basic sanity. And we see we're part of something that's beautiful and greater than ourselves, and gives us a sense of humility, perhaps, because our technology gives us a sense of arrogance that we can dominate and destroy, and we can bring our thing, and we can sort of master nature. And I think, again, that leads to more disease ultimately. So going into nature with very little, with no food, and just being, and some of my best memories are just like not having a tent, not having a sleeping bag, just sleeping out in the woods or something. It's like animals do. Mm-hmm. There's something very healing about doing that. So nature, and just connecting with nature on a daily basis somehow, and then our creativity too, because Jesus said, I have a quote in the beginning of that Jesus said in one of the Essene Gospels, if you bring forth that which is within you, that which is within you will save you. If you don't bring forth that which is within you, that which is within you will destroy you. Mm-hmm. If we don't bring forth our gift to the world, if we live our life in a way that we're just blocked, or we allow ourselves to be distracted and don't fulfill our mission, we become self-destructive. We become alcoholic. We become drug addicted. We become lost, really, in many ways. And of course, we have whole industries that love that. They prey on that. They get rich on that, and they encourage it. The addictive component that comes into play when we're not happy. So when we're happy, addictions don't have any hold over us. But the main thing is to raise our vibration. If we raise our vibration higher, we're living our purpose, we're being creative, then things that would be addictive are not interesting. They're totally not interesting. People say, don't you crave a burger now and then? I think, oh my gosh, I crave a burger about as much as I crave to take a bite out of your arm. I'm not I don't have any desire.
Yeah.
I don't have any desire to, gamble or drink alcohol or take drugs or any of these things. I mean, just alive, breathing and being in the natural world and with our own mind. That's the potential of a high from that is infinite, right? I mean, our own mind is the greatest of all frontiers to explore, and each one of us has one. Each one of us can do that, and the opportunities are endless. And then we can bring that back, and we can somehow share this with other people in ways through art, through music, through conversations like you're doing. Just to realize that it's our creativity. We're, as they say in the religious traditions, we're sons and daughters of God, right? We're sons and daughters of the creative power. So that means we are here to also be creative, and we are, right? We get up in the morning, and life is inherently improvisational, and you got to do something, say something, go here, go there, right? Our life is a result of our intuitive choices that really are creative. So the less we are sort of controlled by the cultural hypnotic trance that is put on us from the time we're little kids, and the more we're connected with our own inner wisdom and let that guide us, then the more we're in touch with the radiant health that is our true nature. And again, we're here for a few decades to shine our light, and as we do that, we encourage others to find their own unique way to shine their light as well, I think, and that's, I think, a life well lived. So these are some of the main ideas in the World Peace Way. There's lots of little concrete nuggets in there, and there's a lot of resources too in the back, so people can find out more and go more deeply into breath work or yoga or the chakras, all the different things. There's so much. But the good news is that each one of us has a do-it-yourself kit, right? Each one of us can use our mind and body to create a world of our own world, which goes out into the bigger world of joy and freedom and harmony and peace. So thanks, Matt. I think I've probably used up the time here already, but
No, that's okay. That was terrific, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. It's almost everything that you, pretty much everything. I can't think of one thing that you say that doesn't resonate deeply with me. All these things that you cover are passions of mine to delve deeper into and help spread the message of, whether it be food choices or chemicals or corruption, all indoctrination, all these things are things that I'm personally, working on and trying to simplify my life as well. I love that you don't have chairs or couches or anything, not only for posture, but also flame retardants are in all these, furniture items that are, like you mentioned earlier, off-gassing into people's homes and things. So, and opening the windows. Tessa mentioned in the chat, should I open my bedroom window? I think that would probably be a good idea. That's probably one of the most important places to keep your window open, don't you think?
yeah, it's definitely is important. Of course, it depends on where you live. If you're right in
Sure.
if you have a toxic chemical plant right outside your window, I wouldn't do it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm married to a woman from Switzerland, and she's just in Switzerland. Everybody just opens the windows all the time, and so she's always going out and she's just opening windows constantly. And then even when it's like 25 degrees outside, she's like we got to get some fresh air in here,
Yeah.
And she says, when you open it up and it heats up faster, don't worry about it. But I think fresh air really is a great, important thing, more than we realize. Fresh air and sunshine and learning how to breathe properly is important too. And then, of course, making your bedroom dark and no Wi-Fi, try to turn off electric fields, try to minimize electric fields, try to create a really good place to sleep. That's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrific. And like you mentioned, it's important to read other books that go into spirituality and, inner peace and things. And so I'll just promote one of your other books, Your Inner Islands. So that's a good one for people to pick up if they haven't already. So yeah, there's so much in the book that we didn't get to go over today, but I hope everybody will go and check it out. World Peace Way. It's on Amazon. And do you sell it on your website as well, or is it just on Amazon?
Yes. We do sell them on the website. If you buy it from the website, I can sign it for you if you'd like. I also want to mention that all three of those books you just mentioned. The World Peace Diet is available as an audiobook. The World Peace Way, Food for Freedom, and Your Inner Islands I'm working on right now as audiobooks. I'm just finishing up Food for Freedom, that'll be first. And then right after that, World Peace Way, and then Your Inner Islands. I really, it's a huge job to do. I was going to hire someone to read it because they have professionals that do that, but I got the guidance that I should read it myself. So I'm reading it myself. I've already read all three, they're done, but I have to do the editing. The audio editing is pretty time consuming, so it'll be done though within the next few weeks. So if people would rather listen to the books rather than read them, that is coming soon. It'll be on Amazon as well as our website too. Yeah.
All right, perfect. And I will just say also, I love that you put the resources, all the different resources in the back of the book. I think you do that in all of your books, don't you?
All the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, clothing you can get. I saw dental care, and you know, pretty much anything that you can think of to really holistically improve your health and lifestyle. You know, there's resources for looking into all these things in the back of the book. So thank you for sharing all this information and you know, making us aware. I was trying to keep my eye open for this book to come out, and I missed it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that it was published, and I'm glad that I got it now. So I'm looking forward to going through it. And yeah, is there any last words you want to share before we sign off?
Oh, no, I think I've talked enough here, but I really appreciate really what you're doing so much, Matt, and everyone. Thank you for your efforts. Never doubt that any effort you make is ever lost. It all contributes and it all helps to raise the vibration for everyone. So thanks. Look forward to staying in touch. People can go to our website, World Peace Diet is probably the best one, worldpeacediet.com, or my name, willtuttle.com. They both go basically to the same place.
All right. Terrific. Well, thanks again, Dr. Tuttle, and thank you everybody for being here with us today. Definitely check back in next week. We'll do another show, same time, actually back to the noon Central Time or noon Eastern Time next week. But yeah, look forward to seeing everybody next week, and always follow your raw intuition.